Hello, everyone. Coming from my end. Can you please speak again?
Yes, I can hear you.
Your voice is very low.
I I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm struggling.
But my voice is faint, or you can't hear at all.
I can hear you now. It was very faint.
Okay,
I think it's better with it.
that's fine.
Great, great, great. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. It's nice to have you once
Happy New Year
again.
to you too. Happy New Year.
Yeah, yeah. I hope you've had a restful festive season and
I'm trying.
taking some time
I'm
to
trying.
have fun as well.
Uh, I'm I'm trying.
Yeah, please try. We are all trying. Some of us are very boring, so we have to make a conscious effort to have some fun. Yeah, thank you. I think there are not so many people here, but we can go ahead and start. When we finish, we can share the link, and I believe they can, I mean, get the message. Um, I am glad we are talking about this topic. It's an area that I'm very much concerned about, and I'm glad that we're having this project. So I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. And may 2024 be kind to everybody, all of us, and may we increase from glory to glory. The Behold Project podcast is brought to you, or it's powered by Comfort Legacy Foundation, and it's partnered by our esteemed doctor, my very good friend, Dr. Isaac Newman, Arthur, and he will talk to us about some projects that he's working on during the session or afterwards. And we are partnered by Funkill. If you also wish to partner with us, you can reach us on 0204 822 and we will set the ball rolling. So, Doctor, I have heard that we are all a bit crazy, and many times, "How are you?" is a common phrase that we use, but when we are asked how are you, everybody goes like, "I'm fine, I'm blessed." Everybody's on social media doing their own thing, and it's as if everyone is good to go. But the question is, are we all really good? Are we okay? How are we all doing? Are we all that crazy? And if we are crazy, what is the level of crazy, and how does it impact our environment and the people around us?
Okay, so I think generally the we have a certain cultural approach to many things, and in terms of our setting, it is a bit more of a cultural thing to put up your good self, all the time. It's so, for example, in the house, when someone is coming to visit you, you put up your best. You give them your best cup, your best plate. Even if you don't have money, you may go borrow money to cook and do those things. It's a cultural thing to put up our best foot almost all the time. And unfortunately, that has also been translated into our personal lives and what we do. And so there are a lot of people who genuinely may be going through stuff, but they may not communicate it because that is how we have been raised. That is how we've been what do you call it? We have been told to live our lives, and especially in our part of the world. I'm sure there are other cultures too who do the same. We tend not to help the child to be vocal enough, to be expressive enough. So, for example, a child is not supposed to talk back when there's an issue. You're not supposed to address your parents or older people. So even if you are going through something, you can't call your dad and say, "Daddy, I'm going through this and that." Or If something happens between you and your parents or a sibling, older sibling, you can't go and say that what you did to me was wrong. And so we have that is how we've been groomed. We have been groomed not to be expressive, not to express our emotions, not to express how we feel. And so, for example, you go to certain cultures, and kids are allowed to talk back. Kids are allowed to express themselves, to defend themselves. You can see couples holding their hands, in public, giving a kiss or something. So we are generally not expressive, and unfortunately, that has also been translated into a person's life, a person's health, a person's mental well-being. That when people have a certain, when we say mental when we talk about mental well-being, we're looking at your thinking, feelings, and behavior, right? And so when someone is feeling unwell, not physically, like mentally, they are sad, they're scared, they're anxious, they're worried, they are confused, they don't know what to do, right? Or when they are even physically not feeling well, we tend not to express it. You see, we tend not to vocalize it. We tend not to seek help because that has been translated right from our background. You see, the things that we experience from our background into even our healthcare and then how we express ourselves when we are unwell. And that is where the problem is, right? And so when we use the term, the fact that everybody is crazy a bit, it's only an expression people use to say that at every point in time, we all may have been mentally challenged in a way. We may have things that may be affecting or impacting our mental well-being. That would ultimately influence how we respond to our environment, how we respond to others, how functional we become. See, so at every point in time, there is, what do you call it? There is this thing about our mental well-being that may not be going so well, and it can actually be expressed in terms of our behaviors. So for example, you wake up in the morning, you are all over the place, you don't feel like talking to people, you go to work and you are angry at everybody, you are a bit irritable and all that. That is what people may say, that everybody has that. Something there all the time, because generally at every point in time, some things may be affecting your mental well-being, how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And that can tell on you. And you asked about, so how, at what level do you say that this craziness is really craziness? This is really a problem. At what point would you say this is really a problem? There are four things, four areas that we may look at to say that if it gets to this point, it means that it is above and beyond and you may need help. And that is when the first one is that is when you are not able to function. You see, what it means is that everything around you is suffering because of the way you feel, think, and behave. So you realize that when you get up, you're not able to attend to your normal activities. You don't feel like bathing, you don't feel like eating, you don't feel like going to work. It's like that functionally, activities of daily living, the things you have to do daily, you realize that no, there is a problem. You see, because we all go through stuff and it may not affect our functioning significantly. But when you realize that your functioning is being affected significantly, then there is a problem. So we use the term dysfunction and dysfunction, right? Where you realize that there is some dysfunction. Activities of daily living, your day-to-day activities is being affected because of that, how you think, feel, and behave. And again, when it's causing some distress. See, when you realize that you are really uncomfortable, you are really in some pain, some personal suffering, whether emotionally or physically or whatever, and you know that no, there is something basically wrong with me, and I'm in some discomfort or pain. So you may be this emotional pain, you may be crying unnecessarily, you may be anxious unnecessarily, you may be worried unnecessarily, and you realize that you are in this personal distress. It means that you need help. Because all of us go through things and you realize that we are generally cool. You know, even if there's some distress, it's not significant enough. But you realize that you are in distress. Then it means that you need help. It's above and beyond. Then again, to when there is what damage to everything around you, right? So everything around you is being destroyed because of how you're thinking, feeling, or behaving, right? So your relationship is being affected. Your work is affected. It's like everything around you is suffering because of how you're thinking, feeling, and behaving. It means there is a problem. Then finally, when there is deviation from social norms, it means that you realize that you are not able to fit in social space and your presence in social spaces has become a problem. So at work, you are the problem. At home, you are the problem. You know, your behavior, people look at you and they all, you are not able to do the things that you are supposed to do, right? And so it means that there is a problem. You know, any social space, you realize that your impact on society is now a problem, right? So the 4 Ds, you know, dysfunction, distress, damage, and deviation from social norms, right? So on the scale of 0 to 10, if 0 means impaired functioning and 10 means optimum functioning, you see, generally you should be above 5, you know, in terms of functioning. You know, you realize that no, you are really, though there is some problems, you are able to manage it well. But if you realize that significantly, you know, things are going bad, then sometimes someone comes to you and you want to assess their level of function. You ask them on the scale of 0 to 10. You know, 5 means average, 10 means optimum function, 0 means impaired functioning. How would you rate yourself? And the person will tell you. They will say, sometimes they say, no, it's below 5. The moment they say that, it means that there is something significant happening and they may need some form of help. Yes. It looks like you're mute. Unmute yourself. You are muted.
Merci. All right. Thank you very much, Doc. So those who just joined, Doctor is the acting director at the University of Professional Studies, Accra, and he's a clinical psychologist. So we are really happy to have him on. And you said a lot. I have a lot of
So
questions here.
it's the medical directorate.
It, oh,
So
oh,
the
it's
UPSA medical directorate, not the
oh,
whole
great. Medical
university.
directorate. Yeah,
So the
medical
medical
directorate.
directorate, yeah,
Medical
yes,
directorate. Yes. Thank you for
at
prompting me
UPSA,
on that.
yes.
Right. That's a
And
big
also
position.
because of this also, I'm also the PRO for Ghana Psychological Association. So
So
wherever I talk, the association is also
yeah.
there. So
So we have a very great expert here with us this morning and at the beginning of the year. So I hope this will be a great opportunity for us to learn and also seek help from the right place. Um, So, Doctor, you talked about the fact that we usually put our best foot out there and it's part of our culture, our tradition, or where we come from. I remember some years ago, I used to work in a place, and when I got to the office, my boss was like, Helena, you're looking good. And I'm thinking about the challenges that I'm facing at that time. And in my head, it's a mess. And I said to him, but I don't feel that great. But after some time, I told myself that I didn't have to express. Looks like doctor is off. What's happening? Let me try and see if I can bring him on again. Um, uh, maybe internet problem. I believe he'll join us soon. Yeah, sorry about that. So I was trying to share an experience that I had. So my boss said, Helena, you're looking great. And I'm like, but I don't feel great because at the time I was dealing with a number of things. And when I said that, I told myself again that, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I should have received that positive vibe because for some of us, we kind of internalize whatever is going on around us. And it takes a while for us to unpack and move on or make progress. And I feel like most of the time we relegate our emotions and we always say, don't focus on your emotions, don't make decisions based on your emotions. But I believe that all of these are a gift that we have been given, and they are supposed to contribute in different ways to make us better human beings. So, based on what we know, we may feel something, and based on what we are feeling, we have to think. And based on what we are thinking, we are going to act. But how do we find a safe place to vent? For example, based on the experience I just shared, I feel it's okay to say I'm not doing good if I'm not doing good, or I'm not feeling great even though I look great. But how do we find a safe place to vent? That's one thing. And how do we make room for positive energy and gradually displace the negative energy or negative vibe based on our exposures?
Okay, so it is you would have to realize that every human experience and whatever we have as human beings, there is a place for it, right? You know, in terms of memory, learning, functioning, you know, day to day. Imagine every conversation you cannot remember, or every conversation you cannot feel. It's going to be mechanical. Even animals express love; they express some feelings towards each other. So it is okay to have to feel. It is okay to feel something. You can't deny your feelings. And again, too, painful things are painful. You know, disappointing things are disappointing. That is why we have words for these things, right? And those words are only an expression of normal, real human experiences. So it's okay to be angry. It is okay to be sad. It is okay to cry. It is okay to feel sad. And so far as you are interacting with your environment, you know, the brain is the seat of all our, you know, mental faculties and interaction with our environment. If you look at, and God made it, there are different parts of the brain for many things. There are parts of the brain for emotional responses, for memories, for how you feel. There are all kinds of neurochemicals for how you feel and all those things. And those things are internal things, and virtually you don't have control over them. They have a certain way of working to make us able to form relationships, to cope with our environment, to pursue our goals, to even have some perception about ourselves, you know, to be able to live independently or even contribute to our environment, right? And so we have all these things coming up with us, and it is okay. You see, the only thing has to do with how we express it and where we express it. That is what is important. How we express it and where we express it, right? And so that is why our ability to express starts from right from the womb. Our mental development, our emotional development, right from the womb, around delivery, labor and delivery, you know, the early childhood, even breastfeeding. Your mother breastfeeding you or not starts your emotional development. So kids who are not breastfed, they don't grow emotionally well than those who are breastfed. Because whilst the mother puts the baby at the breast, the interaction, the hugging, the warmth, while the child is playing with you, with your hair, and all those things. Father carrying the child on the shoulders, pacing up and down, right? Children, as they grow, playing with other kids. So kids who are not playing, they are not growing well. You see, so our educational system, our crèche system is just destroying people before they even develop, right? A parent comparing one child with another child is destroying the child. What do you call it? Abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, sexual abuse. There are all kinds of childhood related experiences. Any childhood experience that is inappropriate is what we term as adverse childhood experiences, right? All those things is affecting the person, right? And people develop from all those things, you see. So an adult really is a reflection of their childhood. Whatever happened to them as kids is what they become as adults. And so how we are able to express ourselves, where and to what degree, is based on all the culmination of all those things that have been happening to us, right? And so, for example, you're dating or you're married to someone or you have a colleague at work and whatever, your ability to relate with them is based on what you have experienced from childhood, how you have experienced life, how you have expressed yourself emotionally, right? And unfortunately, for example, school and related things actually develops your IQ, one level of intelligence. But we have three others. We have emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. All those other intelligences, right, is what makes you able to function well, to be able to express yourself, to be able to relate with people well, to be able to understand your own emotions and the emotions of others and relate with them, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're a professor, a doctor, or you're a lawyer. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's a gap in that aspect of your development. You realize that you will not, so you may have a boss, very, very knowledgeable, smart, yet the person cannot sustain any relationship, right? You may have, or, the person cannot relate to people well. The person may be angry, maybe abused, maybe all that, because you see, that one aspect of intelligence does not make you a functional human being, right? You need all the others to be functional totally as a human being, right? So we develop physical, mentally, socially, and spiritually, right? And let me throw in a scripture here. Luke chapter 2, verse 52. Jesus increased in wisdom, in stature, in favor with God, and favor with men. 4 areas. Wisdom is mental, stature is physical, favor with God is spiritual, and favor with men is social. Right? So physical, mental, social, and spiritual. We develop in those areas right from childhood. So physically, you may see the child grow, right? Increase in weight and height and stuff like that. Mentally, socially, and spiritually, they are growing. And some of the things I've mentioned as their childhood experiences actually affects a child's emotional growth, their social growth, and all that. Right. And so the safe place, right? I don't like using the term vent because vent has some angry undertone. It has this negative undertone. So the safe place to express, I prefer to use the word express, right? To express yourself is in an environment that would ensure progress. You see, you don't express yourself to someone or in an environment that would worsen your situation, right? It's a wrong place. So, for example, you have an issue with someone and you just want to go and vent. The first question you ask yourself is that whoever I'm going to talk to, what will be the outcome? If the outcome will be negative, it's a waste of time. It will make things worse, right? And sometimes it's always good to even go express yourself to a professional so that there can be progress instead of expressing yourself to friends or people who may not. So you may have this particular friend who is a safe place to go and express yourself, right? Because there is progress. Not every friend or every colleague or every person, right, is even good enough. And again, to someone who can do something about it, right? It's better, you see, to express yourself in it. Sometimes maybe a parent or a pastor or someone, a counselor, someone, right? You need to be careful. And it's not, for example, not every pastor or every parent can receive or address the issue. Sometimes wrong places would even worsen the problems, right? It will worsen the problems. So you need a safe place is a place where there will be progress, there will be peace. Whatever the things you are experiencing can be addressed because the goal is to what you call move on. Then 2, why you are expressing yourself is so important. Why? So where is important, why is also important, right? If you are going to express yourself to make a case, to make a point, to get even, to prove a point, to get back at someone, you are going to make a very, very big mistake because the moment you go with a negative attitude or a negative mindset, expect a defense, right? Anytime you express yourself to someone in a negative way, they would want to defend themselves. So why you go do that? The reason to communicate is to be able to address the issue, right? And sometimes conflict can be resolved if the issues are addressed well with the right motives and the right reasons, right? Otherwise, a safe place can even be muddied by a wrong perception and attitude and a negative reason for going to express yourself. And people may lose very, very good friends, because they just express themselves wrongly with the wrong reasons. Some relationships shouldn't actually break down if the issues were addressed. who is the person involved is also very, very important, right? And even the timing, when, is also important. So who, where, why, and when. Who, where, why, and when. When is important. Sometimes you just have to find the right timing to be able to express yourself, And sometimes people, for example, if someone has an issue with a spouse, they will call them at dawn to address the issue. I think it's a very, very wrong time to address an issue. People like addressing issues at dawn a lot. It's a wrong time. And sleeping at dawn is even very, very nice. Sleeping at dawn is very, very nice. When you sleep at dawn, it's very, very nice. So imagine someone is very, very tired from a very, very hectic work at the previous day and wants to catch some sleep because the day is going to be very, very hectic. And you wake up the person and say, let's talk. Usually it's women who do that. They'll call the husband, let's talk at dawn whilst he's sleeping and preparing for work. It's a wrong time. Or when the person has come back from work and the person is tired, or when in the heat of the moment, it is good you don't address an issue. So for example, something comes up, you want to express yourself and you realize that emotions are high, tensions are high, and you want to vent, you are going to make things worse. So sometimes it's best, when you are angry, when you are emotional, when you are sad, it's best you don't address issues around those times because you are likely to be emotional instead of using some wisdom. Your heart will go before your head. And usually when your heart goes before your head, you may say things you don't feel like, or you don't have to say of, in the normal time, you may not say. You may use a tone that may be unnecessary. You may even physically express yourself that may not be appropriate. And later on, you have actually vented and you have to come back and address the issue again. So it's always good that when your emotions are high and the situation, the environment is inappropriate, it's better you wait for an appropriate time because the goal is progress, right? The goal is progress. And if you want to make progress, you need to be sensitive to the environment, right? Then I think the second thing you talked about was I think I missed that.
Oh, maybe I'll have to come back to it. I'm sure I lost that.
Yeah,
But based
I'm
on
sure I've
what you have
addressed it.
just said,
Yeah, I'm sure I've addressed
probably.
it. I'm sure I've
Hmm.
addressed it. Yes.
Yes, you mentioned the who's. You mentioned people that we could go to, like counselors, like the expert, like therapists, that we could see to help resolve our emotional problems or our mental health. But I just want to also say that we need to put some work into identifying the right aspects as well. If we say they are counselors, they have to be really the right counselors because I have had a personal experience with someone who was supposed to um, be somebody who would like in a place where you are referring to, like maybe a counselor or in a spiritual place to help, and turned out to be the worst help I got in that moment. So I feel like we really need to watch out and mind the places where we seek this kind of help from, because it can be a very sensitive place, and sometimes we just go ahead and receive what people are saying. So this person says, "Oh, go and see this person. Oh, go and see that one," but we don't do our own checks to be sure who this person is that I am going to talk to. So I just also want to reiterate that in getting the right place to, you use the word not vent, I don't want to use that, to express our emotions, is appropriate to identify the right person or the right people. The fact that someone is saying go to this person doesn't mean you should just get up and go. I think you should do your own check, and we should moderate the kind of information we give out there, and be sure where we really find ourselves before we just pour ourselves.
Yeah. With that, let
But
me make a
what
comment. With that, let me make a
right,
comment that not everybody who uses the title counselor is a counselor. You know,
right,
we have people who have been trained as counselors. And I keep saying that if you go somewhere and you have a bad experience, go to another place. It's just like the hospital. You go to a hospital and the facility doesn't do a good job. You look for the next available hospital, right? Because counselors are different. There are different types of even trained counselors and how effective they are. So if you go to one and they are not effective, just look for another person. Don't be discouraged about it.
Right.
I'm sure there are people out there who may have, and again, to the person who may go to may not have the expertise to deal with that particular problem, though that person has the title counselor. And a counselor who is wise will know their own limitations and refer appropriately.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great to know. Doc, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the people who are here with us, our viewers. I see my aunt Mary Benson. She's joining us from the United States. I see Joseph Kate. So sorry if I don't get the name right. I see Kobe Ofuri Armstrong. I see Vida Owusu Mensah, Dine Duchum, Openyi Owusu Efriye. I see John Antobam, I see Eunice Owusu-Nyakon, I see Evelyn, I see Hans, good to see you. It's been such a while. And I see my sister-in-law, Olivia Francis, the CEO of Transformation Salon in Kumasi. I see my friend Magneta. Thank you for joining. I see Rufai. I see Pastor Kofi J. Mensah. I see Julianata. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any comments, you could please throw that in the comment section. If you have any questions, you can do that as well. Doctor, there is one thing that I want us to talk about. What do you do when you find yourself in a place where a place that gives negative vibes, that kind of negative energy, but you don't have a choice to leave that place. So you're working in an office where you don't feel adequate. You find yourself with a group of friends where you feel limited, you don't feel comfortable. And it's like you're stuck in that place. It's not that easy to leave. If it's a job, you'll have to look for another job. If it's a marriage, you probably have to stay depending on where you find yourself and you feel like this is bad energy for me. Because for me the easiest way is to leave, but it's also not that simple to leave depending on where you find yourself. How do you, like I was talking about, creating room for good vibes and good energy as you displace bad energy? This is a different scenario where you find yourself in a place it's not easy for you to leave. Are there activities to engage in, or are there strategies or steps to take in order to orient yourself in a way where your emotions are in check, your mind is not in a mess, and you can act appropriately? Because, like some of us, as I said, we kind of internalize everything that's happening, and it takes a while to unpack and make a move or take an action. How do we respond in these instances?
Yes. So there are three basic general approaches to when you are in a place or with a person or in a situation that is kind of affecting you significantly. There are three approaches. The first is to solve the problem and stay, right? So you solve the problem because the problem is solvable and you stay, right?
Every problem
Then
is
the second,
solvable.
no, I'm saying that there are three approaches based on the issues.
Okay.
The first approach is that the problem you are seeing is solvable. So you are able to solve it, or you should solve it and stay. That is the first approach. So for example, you are having some difficulty in your marriage or at work, and whatever the difficulties are, they are solvable, issues. So you solve it and you stay. The second general approach is that you cannot solve it, but you develop coping strategies so that you can stay. So the problems cannot be solved. You just have to learn to adjust and cope so that you can still stay, right? With that, what it means is that the situation may not be significant enough to actually significantly affect you, though there are concerns, and those concerns cannot go away, and you need to stay with. So for example, let's say you have a spouse, and that spouse generally is a sanguine, all over the place kind of people, have friends all over the place, and all those things. And you're just not happy with that, right? You cannot change that aspect of your spouse. You can't, because that is the person's personality. You can't change it. But it is not bad. It's not bad to be a sanguine. But the approach your husband is using to do things you are not happy about. So you actually learn to live with that. So the problem cannot be solved, but you can cope with it, right? And with time, allow time for some adjustments to be done, right? And so for things like that, you can actually stay and cope. Then the next one has to do with the next approach is the problem cannot be solved. It will significantly affect your life, sometimes even end your life or make your life very, very terrible, and you have to leave. And that one, you can't say I don't have a choice, because in life, terms like I cannot, I don't have, those things, those terminologies in psychology, absolute statements, they are kind of part of the cognitive distortions. Everybody has a choice, and you can choose. But every choice has its own consequences. But ultimately, you need to make choices that safeguards your life and your own mental well-being, right? And so the third one is that you cannot solve the problem. The problem will destroy you on many levels. So you cannot stay. So you have to leave. And when you leave, we are looking at your life against what you are going to lose. So for example, you are losing a job, but you save your life and look for a job, another job, right? If you stay in that job, you will die. So we look at the risks and the benefits, pros and cons, and say no, the benefits far outweigh the whatever, so you can leave. Or when you leave, it's going to protect you and stuff like that. So for example, an abusive marriage, you don't stay in an abusive marriage hoping that the beating will stop. It doesn't happen that way. So for things like that, we even advise you to leave. You see, and so these are the three approaches. The first one is that it can be solved, you solve and you stay. The second one is that it cannot be solved, but it's not significant in life to impact your function, though it's a bit uncomfortable. Then you learn how to cope and stay. Then the third one is that it cannot be solved, your life is significantly affected, and you have to leave. These are the three approaches, right? And so out of this, there are about 5 things I would suggest based on what you said. In a toxic environment, you cannot do anything. 5 things I would suggest. The first one is that identify the problem itself. You need to think about it. Why am I feeling this way? And sometimes the problem is not the environment. The problem may be you and how you are responding to the environment. Because the same environment you see as toxic, another person is enjoying that environment nicely. And they say, sometimes you go to a workplace and one person is very grateful for the work. They are so happy going to work. Another person sees the work as very, very terrible. So sometimes it is not the environment itself, but it is how we see the environment and how we are responding to environment. So you have to make sure that the problem is not you. Sometimes, even for example, in relationships or marriage and those things, sometimes the problem may not even be the other person. It may be us and how we are responding to the other person, because that person is someone's prayer topic, right? And so the person you are not appreciating may be someone's blessing. So sometimes it is not the environment, it is us, right? And so you have to clearly define what the problem is and have an objective, approach in evaluating whatever is happening. Not a biased approach. Sometimes people blame everybody else, they blame the system, they blame everybody else but themselves. And unfortunately, Africans, we do that a lot. No accountability whatsoever, right? And we want a very, very soft life, yet we are not ready to put in the effort, right? So that is the first thing. Identify the problem and find out whether it is the environment that is the problem or it is you who is the problem, so that you can be able to address the things the way you are supposed to address it. 2, think differently. One of my very, very good friends, made a very, very important statement some time back. Dr. William Ochifimpong. I'm sure one of your shows you should invite him, William. Dr.
Yes, we
William
should.
Ochifimpong.
We should.
Yeah, one of your programs. William, I think
Yeah.
he made say about 12 or 15 years ago when he was giving a talk somewhere. I was part. And he made a statement that if you cannot change, I don't know whether it is a statement or he also picked it from somewhere, but let me make the statement. It says, if you cannot change what you are seeing, change how you see it. You see, if you cannot change what you're seeing, change how you see it. Because you see, how you see something is so important. So think differently about what is happening, right? So sometimes it is our thinking that is the problem and not the thing itself. Because, for example, you, right? Some people may not like you, some people may like you. So the problem is not you. The problem is how they think about you. See, those who love you and care about you, right? They have a certain good
Right.
perspective about you. Because how
Right.
you think influences how you feel, and how you feel influences how
Mhm.
you behave, right? Those who don't like you, they have been thinking about you. Sometimes I hear some people make comments about me or, discuss me in a certain way. And sometimes I ask myself, is that me they are describing?
It's
Is
not me. Right.
that me? Like,
Is that my
it's
ever
totally not
smiling
me.
doctor?
Yeah, it's totally not me. And I say, it's not me they are
Right.
describing. So,
Mm.
and some you'll be shocked that some people really don't like me. And sometimes you don't have to do
Yeah.
anything for
Yeah.
someone not to like you. And it's their thinking, people's
Yeah.
thinking, right? So if you are in a work environment and you don't like your boss, you don't like other workers, just change how you think about them. You see,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot will
Right.
change. A lot will change. Because whoever you are not okay with, others are okay with them. Why? They have been thinking about them. Right? So, for example, there is no money. Why not think about the fact that money will come instead of thinking that the world is an unfair place, right? Or maybe someone loses a relationship. Maybe two ladies lose a relationship. One person will say, hey, Kojo too is gone. Why me? All men are the same. And all those things. Another person will say, if you have gone away, go away with your big head. Another person will come. The same relationship failure. The mindset is different. You see,
Right.
for example, someone will say Ghana is hard. Ghana is hard. Obviously, Ghana is hard, but you're thinking about Ghana, right? Will make your life more bearable or not, right? And I keep telling people, every rich has a favorite. Every difficult boss has a favorite. Every difficult boss has a favorite. So sometimes you just have to change your thinking about the place. The same place you are complaining about salary, someone is grateful for the salary, right? The same place that you are not happy with the system, others are grateful for it. So change your thinking about things and people. The third one is that enjoy the good about wherever and whatever you have. Enjoy the good. you know, sometimes, for example, sometimes a couple can come and see me and I ask them, I think there was this lady who was always complaining about the spouse, right? My husband has done this, my husband has done this. Oh, one day she came and said, Madam, hasn't your husband done any good thing for you? Then she started laughing, you see. And another person too came and said, I told the person, okay, there are things about your husband you don't like. If you were to distribute in terms of percentage, the good and the bad, how many percentage over 100? How many percentage will you give to the good, and how much percentage will you give to the bad? And he said, oh, the good, I'll give 80%. The bad is around 20%. I said, oh, madam, you see, so in a workplace, in a relationship, in whatever, you realize that whoever you having that conflict, or whatever environment you have a conflict, there are too many good things about that environment, that if you were to just focus on enjoying the good about the place, you will be more grateful and more happier, in that environment. Because whatever it is, there's a good about every environment. There is a good about every place or every person. That if you were to enjoy the good about them, you realize that life won't be as unbearable as it looks like. Then the fourth one is that focus on the good more. Because whatever you focus on becomes the reality. becomes your reality. Whatever you focus on becomes your reality. So there are people who are not too happy about everything about the marriage, but they've chosen to focus on the good about the marriage, right? And sometimes, for example, people dating and they have exes, right? You're dating someone and maybe you have dated about 2, 4, 5 people in your past, and they are bitter about their exes. I tell them that, you see, the ex you left, maybe they may have hurt you, but not everything about them was bad. There was something good about them you enjoyed. Why not focus on that good and still maintain a certain cordial relationship? Because whatever you do, you were also not 100% good or okay, right? And so sometimes when we focus on enjoying the good about life, the good about people, we focus on the good about them, you realize that the negatives about them loses its grip on us, right? It loses its hold. We now realize that, oh, we really are blessed. You know, sometimes we focus on what we don't have instead of what we have, right? And we become very ungrateful. But if you count your blessings and name them one by one, you realize that no, life is not as bad as it should be. So in a workplace, for example, that you may think is toxic, there are too many good things about the workplace. In Ghana, for example, whilst others want to travel and leave the country, others are in Ghana focusing on the good about the country, and they are focusing on the opportunities in the country, and they are happier and doing well. COVID-19 others richer, because whilst others were focusing on people who were dying and all the issues, others were looking at the good about the season. I know someone who is far richer than before COVID-19, because she took advantage of COVID-19 and she's doing so well, right? So focus on the good. So the first was to enjoy the good. The next was to focus on the good. Then finally, I would talk about the fact that sometimes it's okay to give up. You see, sometimes it's okay to give up. Sometimes it's just wisdom to give up on what is distressing you. Sometimes it's just a decision to just walk away. So in a work environment, you assess all the things I've said and you realize that it's not your fault. You are doing your best. You are focusing on the good. You are doing all that, yet the place or the person is still distracted. Just walk away and never think that you cannot walk away, right? Never think you cannot leave. You know, some people are trapped in abusive relationships or marriages because they feel that if they leave, they have nowhere to go, they have nothing to do. That kind of thinking is not true. When you leave, you find solutions to the problems, right? When you walk away, you know, like for example, whatever happened to about a week or so ago, the lady who in Ghana attempted and broke. We are still waiting for Guinness, world record. We are waiting for their verdict, right? But from whatever we saw, for us as Ghanaians, she has actually broken the record, right? You know, think about it. Staying awake for 5 or so days and having little times of sleep and little time for leisure, and you have to be at a place for 5 days. The human being has the capacity to navigate its way through life. The brain, there is something about the brain we call plasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire itself, to recalibrate, to readjust, to come up with solutions. We have this ability, so we are limited by the way we think, not our potential, because the human body has that enormous. If you look at pregnancy and labor and delivery, it's one of the things that tells us that we have this enormous capacity to deliver, to be able to navigate our way. So the thinking that I cannot walk away, I cannot leave, what will I do? It's a very, very negative approach to life. And so regardless of the situation, sometimes it's okay to give up. Sometimes it's okay to let go. It is okay to walk away from anybody or from any environment that destroys you. It's even in the Bible, right? Jesus said that if you go to a town and they don't receive you, say shake off the dust off your head. When Jesus was sending the disciples to go and preach to other towns, what did he say? He said, if you go to a place and they welcome you, let your peace be with them. Stay. But if they don't receive you, he says shake the dust off your head and move to the next town, right? Even God doesn't waste time on people who will reject him, right? He will keep coming back at you, but he will not come back forever. You understand what I'm saying, right? And so you would have to realize that it is okay to give up sometimes. It is okay to give in sometimes. It is okay to let go sometimes, especially when you realize that you are dying emotionally, physically. You are going. You know that, you are struggling. Things are very, very hard, and you can actually identify the source and the problems. It's not, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
please, I can hear you.
it's not everybody you can change. It's not everything you can change. And it's not every environment that can accept you and your difference. Right? And sometimes you would die trying. You would die trying to change. And that is one of the fallacies. There are some things in psychology called fallacies. The thinking that you can change things, the thinking that you can influence things, the thinking that you can, and so you make it a life goal. It's not every place that can accept your difference and your uniqueness. And sometimes the safest thing that you can ever do to yourself is to mind your own business, right? And to walk away. Because sometimes walking away is a lifesaver.
I have a choleric way of talking about this. Don't cast your pearls before swine.
Yes, and you can't be wise around a fool, and you can't be a fool around the
Yeah,
wise. You can't be wise around
yeah,
the fool,
and
and you can't be a fool around the wise, right? And sometimes you
mm,
just have to walk away.
right, right. And sometimes we talk about communication when these issues have to do with people around us. We talk about talking about it, confronting the issue. But I realize that some people don't get it, or maybe I don't get it. So it's better we make a decision to just hold on or to move, right? But doctor, you said something. You gave an example of someone you were talking to who would just, I mean, emphasize the negatives, and you would ask about the positives, and you gave a percentage of 80/20. How do we give these percentages? Because sometimes you may have the 80, but the 20 is really powerful and it takes a great toll. So I'm looking at how we do this percentage, because there's also something that we say about chewing granules, and you just have one that's false and it just destroys everything in your mouth. Um, how do we do this rating? Because the person is good. The person, let's take a relationship for example. The person is a very nice person. The person is buying you everything. That's their way of expressing their love. The person is really nice, but there's just one thing about that person that throws you off or puts you in a place of distress. Is this one going to be the 80%? This one thing going to be the 80%? Or really, the 80% will be all the good things that this person is doing, or even the 90%, and there's just one thing that this person is doing. I
Yeah,
hope
well,
you
so
get
you are
me.
evaluating you are evaluating the entirety of the problem or the entirety of the person or the place, right? So you look at everything else about the person. And you need to also ask yourself whether that 20% is significant enough to walk away, right? I think I gave the three general approaches to things. There are things that you cannot fix. They are destructive. It will destroy you, that you just have to walk away. It may be part of the 20%, right? But what I'm saying is that generally, right, you realize that sometimes when you go into conflict resolution, whether between two people or company or this and stuff, you realize that sometimes the 20%, which is the reason why they are walking away, it is not significant enough to walk away. It's just changing how you see it or your approach before you realize that 20% is not as heavy as you think it is, right? And again, to
Right.
um, you realize that if everybody was to think in a certain way, all of us will walk away. There is nobody who would be able to maintain any relationship, because whatever it is, none of us is 100% okay. It is, so what it means is that all of us do not deserve to be around anybody or people being around us, because we are all not okay. As I'm talking to you, it's not too easy to live with me, because of I'm a high functioning person. And sometimes someone will ask, I can't sit at one place. At some point I had to even try to evaluate myself whether I have ADHD or something. Some of my friends actually laugh at me, that it's likely that I have some small ADHD somewhere, right? Attention deficit hyperactive. I'm a bit very, very active, and I'm a very high functioning person, and I pay attention to a lot of details, right? And so if you're living with someone like me, you have to keep up in a way. And there are too many good things about me also, right? So it's case by case. We don't generalize things like that. We would have to look at individuals and what they are walking away or running away from, to see whether we can fix it or they can cope with it. And when they can't fix it or cope with it, then we advise them to walk away. Unfortunately, people walk away from things they could have fixed if they had received the right help. And that is where the problem is.
Right, great. These are great insights, and I think that we'll be bringing it to an end very soon. If there are any questions, I would ask our viewers to throw it in the chat. I again would like to acknowledge those who have joined us. I see Ekwenshra Ochre. I see Samuel Afuakwa. Minister Afuakwa, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining. And then I see Dr. Charles Abebio. Hi, thank you. And then Kwame Daniel, there is Abimeya, there is Alex Mintz, there is Terence, there is George Ojo, and my own Professor Robert Aparibo. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we'll be able to do a podcast on something nutrition today. And doctor, that reminds me, you talked about the fact that our emotions start right from the womb. And you didn't talk about nutrition. I'm offended because we talk about the first 1,000 days, and I always say that nutrition is life. We are built, we are built with nutrition. And so I feel like nutrition also plays a major role. And so what a mother is feeding during the first 1,000 days, especially, is also important. And so as we are thinking about strategies to be good, to be emotionally stable, to be mentally stable, I'd like to remind our viewers to also eat well. Eat well, because all of these contribute to the neurochemicals, to the child's neurodevelopment, and it's important to pay attention to that. Doctor, what do you have to say about this?
Well, so garbage in, garbage out. You are what you eat.
Right, right,
What do you call it? And so that's why God has made all kinds of things available to us. And people must also pay attention to seasonal plants, right? So, for example,
mm,
mango has its own season, pineapple has its own season, and God does that so that people can enjoy them. So, anytime
mm,
something is seasonal, enjoy some, because in God's wisdom,
mm,
He's providing these things for our benefit, right? So, and be more
right,
natural with your foods also. Be more natural. So the fruits, the veggies, and those things, right, really helps. We need all these vitamins, E, B, all those things. We need some proteins here and there. We need all kinds of things to be able to help with the brain and how the brain functions, right? And if you
yeah,
go online, you can even get all kinds of resources about diets that helps with depression, anxiety, and all those things. But everything we need has been provided by God in our environment. Unfortunately, we are becoming more and more artificial. Instead of buying fruit juice, buy orange or plantain, pineapple, and blend. Eh? Instead of going to get energy drink, why not do a combination of honey, of gin, something? Instead of going to buy all these fast foods and junk foods, why not go? The more natural you are with your diet, the healthier you become, and it affects your mental well-being.
right, right, right. Thank you so much, doctor. So, we would like to thank you all for joining us, and this has been very insightful. If you missed the earlier part, we will have the live on, and you can view it and share with your contacts, with your friends, with your loved ones. I think we have a lot to take home. First off, we all are some way. We have our some wayness, and we don't have to look at the other person and always point fingers that the other person is the problem. We may be the problem. Like as Christians, we always talk about the fact that he sets a table, I mean, before my enemies. Sometimes you may actually be the enemy, but we always want to take the positive. But it's also important that we look into ourselves. But as we're asking how we're doing, it's very important to be sensitive to our environment, to know the things that we can deal with, the different kinds of adjustments that we can do, the coping strategies to be able to stay in an environment and flourish, because the same environment that we despise, like Doctor said, is someone's prayer topic. We should look through our exposures or our situations with the right lenses, so that we can deal with them appropriately. And we should enjoy it whilst it lasts. Doctor talked about seasons. In this life, there are different phases, there are different seasons. So it's very important that we make the best of the seasons that we find ourselves in. And if we find ourselves in situations that we cannot deal with, problems that we cannot solve, when we feel like the coping strategies are not working, sometimes it's just okay to let go. It's okay to not throw your pearls in front of swines. So thank you all for joining. That I think we talked about looking for the experts. So, yeah, looking at a safe place to express our emotions. And so, if you could share with us how people can contact you, if they need a safe place to express their emotions, that would be very great.
Well, so there are three things I do. Generally, I'm at University of Professional Studies. They are medical director. There's a clinic inside the university. The what do you call it? The vice chancellor, Professor Abednego Fehia Mate, a very, very astute man. His commitment to healthcare is amazing, right? And so we have a very, very good wellness center in the clinic. That is where you may find me, right? Then again, you can contact me for either a one-on-one, in person, or online, right? Online can be any video or call. I also do that a lot, so you can get in touch with me, right? Then again, I go around a lot in terms of education, companies, educational facilities, churches, and religious organizations. I move around a lot, and that is one of my coping strategies. I'm a mover, so the more I move, the happier I become. So you
Are
can
you a
also get in
sanguine
touch
too?
with me. Yes, I'm a sanguine. So um, those who attend my sessions, they know what happens there, right? So a church can invite me, or a company or a group can invite me to address their staff or their members or something. I do that a lot, and I have a very, very holistic approach to things. So I mix both, because I'm a medical doctor and also a clinical psychologist, and I'm also a Christian. So I actually try and do a mixture of all, so that we can have a holistic perspective about things. It helps. And sometimes if a mosque invites me, I go also into the Quran and what the Quran says about some of the health
Oh, you
issues.
did. Oh,
I do. I go to the mosque sometimes. So it's
awesome.
an amazing experience.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
I can imagine that. We are happy to have you here. And I believe for those of us who are watching through the Behold Project, they are going to get some discounts as well when they come for some professional help, right, Doctor? They should
They
just
should just
mention,
mention your name.
yes,
Mention your
yes,
name. That's
yes,
all.
yes, yes, yes. Just mention my name and you have some magic there, magic right there. So we'd like to thank you all. I'd like to remind us that the Behold Project is powered by Comfort Legacy Foundation. We are into nutrition and health advocacy. We also provide nutritional consultancy, and our primary goal is actually to provide support for malnourished children through various healthcare facilities. We also do annual donations. So if you wish to partner with Comfort Legacy Foundation in any way, please contact us on 0204-822-726. We'd like to thank you all. Thank you so much, Doctor, for this session. Would you like to share your final words before we go away?
I think of all the things in this world, take care of you. Of all the things in this world, take care of you. Prioritize your life above everybody else, right? Because
Be selfish.
yes, in a way, take care
I
of
was
yourself
I was
because
saying that, please let me cut you here. I was saying that some time ago, and someone overheard me, and he's like, "That's not what the Bible is preaching." And I'm like, if I'm not well, how am I going to take care of the other person, you
yeah,
know?
so the Bible will
So,
say, love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. What it means is that don't please others above you because you need
mm,
to be well in order to take care of
mm,
them. Unfortunately, sometimes you take care of everybody else. And Jesus always drove away the crowd and he went to a solitary place by himself. There were people dying in the population. There were people with illnesses in the population who had come to see him. But he would always allow them to leave and you go to a place to rest. And so it's okay to take care of you. And so of all the things in this world, make sure you are taking care of yourself so that you can be strong, you can be mentally healthy to be able to take care of everything else that is important to you. And remember that when you die, everything goes back to normal. We pretend we are crying for 3 days. We come to eat fufu at your funeral, and everything is history, right? So make sure that you're taking care of yourself and be intentional about your health, right? Stop smoking, stop drinking alcohol, stop, what do you call it? Getting involved, exercise, do all those basic things. And at some point, prioritize your health above everything else. The moment you cross 30, 40, know that your body will start declining, right? So even if you have been having dangerous fun before 40 or before 30 years, know that that kind of lifestyle is not compatible with health. In Ghana, only 4% of the population cross 65. Life expectancy for men is around 63. For women is around 64. Majority
mm,
of Ghanaians die around 63, 64. And if you look into the issues, realize that a lot of Ghanaians have a very, very bad lifestyle. So make sure you are eating well, make sure you are resting enough, make sure you are physically active. Make sure if you have hypertension, diabetes, or any chronic illness, don't give excuses and not take your drugs. Take those medications. Go for review every year, once a year. Go for some medical so that you can protect your health. So of all the things in this world, take care of yourself. And above all, there is also God. There is God. And I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. He's been my help throughout my life. And there is this peace that Jesus gives that nobody gives. Right? So in all your pursuits, know that there is God. And don't be too wise to think that, there is no God. Because
mm.
there is something, at some point in life, only God makes sense. Nothing else does. At some point, only God makes sense. And regardless of who we are and what we do, the love of Christ knows no bounds. And God is with us. When you're in trouble, don't trust your own strength. Seek God's face about things. And God can help. He's an ever-present help for all of us. So never forget in all your efforts and all the things you're doing with your life, know that God is also interested in your life and is ready to help. He doesn't disappoint. Sometimes we misinterpret what he's doing, right? Thinking that he has disappointed us, but he's not. All things work together for our good when we trust him. Finally, you would understand why things happen the way they did. And sometimes your current disappointment is your future deliverance.
Mm,
Let me make this, let me just, maybe in a minute, let me just, an experience I had.
mm,
About 12 years ago, I was working in one of the hospitals, their intensive care unit.
mm.
I was there when they rushed a woman who had been shot in the head, right, by the husband.
In
She was
Ghana here.
unconscious yeah, in Ghana. She was
Mm,
unconscious for 5 days and she died. I was so affected and pained by that experience. And I was asking God questions. Why? You know, and I felt God telling me that if he had stopped the wedding 10 years back, the lady would have asked him, God, why me? And that is when this statement came to mind. Sometimes your current disappointment is your future deliverance. There are things we lose that we are pained about. People we lose, places we lose, things that happen to us we don't understand. We miss a flight, we miss a bus, our targets are not met, some businesses collapse. All these things, sometimes it is God who is behind it, and he has a perspective about the future, right? And sometimes you just have to trust him and be thankful all the time, whether things are good or things are bad. Because some of the things you think is bad, right? It is God's way of saving you from major problems. Right? And that is why the Bible would advise that we should be thankful in all things. Sometimes your current disappointment is your the relationship didn't work out and the marriage didn't come up because that man could have been the reason why you die early. You know, you may not understand some of these things, but as much as possible, simplify your life, be very, very positive about life, trust God's direction, pray about things, sometimes let things go and things like that. It's going to save you a lot of problems. Last time I wanted to pick an Uber, I ordered and they will cancel. I ordered and the person will cancel. I was late for a meeting. I was getting angry. You know, why is there every Uber they will cancel? Then I was saying, God, why? You know, I'm supposed to go and speak at this program. And he told me sometimes, and God told me sometimes, I allow them to cancel because I want you to sit in the right Uber so that you can get to your destination. Since that time, I stopped complaining about things. So there is an unseen hand that can guide your life, right? And a lot of the disappointments sometimes is divine. Sometimes even for marriage, a parent will say, "As I will never allow you to marry this guy," and you think it's a demon. It's not a demon. Sometimes it's God behind that voice trying to stop you from the wrong marriage. You know, and a lot of people who have gone through all kinds of problems will tell you that if they had listened or they had been more patient, a lot of things that happened to them wouldn't have happened. So do your best and trust God for the rest. And I'm sure that this year, if you are able to combine your efforts and divine efforts, human efforts, divine efforts, you know, your life will go well. Do what you have to do as an individual and trust God to do what he also has to do for you. A combination of both. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders build in vain. So there is the Lord who is doing what he has to do, and there is the builder who must also do what he has to do. There is always a combination between divine efforts and human efforts. Africa, we pray too much, we do too little. Because of that, we are struggling. Europe and US and those places, they do too much, they pray too little. So they are also struggling. Because there are things that only God can solve. There are things that God expects you to solve because it's not in his domain. So whilst you're trusting God, you are also putting in the effort that you are supposed to do. A combination of divine efforts and human efforts is what gets results. And it's my prayer that this whole year you will do your best and also trust God for the rest. Thank you very much for your time. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much for preaching. So let's
Amen,
have a
sister.
balance.
Amen,
Let's have
sister.
a balance. That's what my very good friend, doctor and pastor is telling us. Let's have a balance, right? So thank you very much. Here we're going off now. Blessings and have a great year.
Bye.
Bye.